I'm going to show you how to build a sampler instrument with Logic Pro. You may be able to run Logic Pro if it's already here in your dock, or you can type Logic Pro up in Spotlight and run it there, or you can go to your applications folder and find it there. Now it's likely to open the last thing that was opened before. I'll just want to close that and open something new. And it may come up with this window, we'll get back to it, or it may come up with something like this that is more hands-on and asks you what kind of project you want to do, so it can populate it with all the kinds of things you might want to use. I always recommend going for the simplest thing, like empty project. Now it's going to ask how many tracks and what kind of tracks do you want to include, because tracks are where you put content in Logic. And so normally I might use an audio track. Today I'm going to use a software instrument. One will do, and I'll click create, and here it's made it for me. Here I can see the timeline view, here's a mixer view, and here's a view of the instruments that I could use. What I want to use is a sampler. This library window may show up on the right side depending on what version of Logic you're using. I don't want to browse through all this list, and these things look interesting, but I'm just going to type in sampler, and here's Logic sampler. So I've selected it. Now I can see my track has been renamed, and I can see here in the mixer channel associated with the track, there's a button where I can click and access the control panel for the sampler. These knobs are fun to play with. We're not going to do that today. We don't need to. I'm going to click Edit, drill down deep, and this is the guts of a sampler. The idea of a sampler instrument or a sample playback synthesizer is that it tries to pretend to be another instrument by playing back recordings of that instrument. It's a very straightforward way to try to copy something. This is a very complex copy of a grand piano. And so it's pretty convincing. You can see it takes a lot of layers of detail to do something like that. We're not going to do anything near that layer of detail, and I think we're going to get some more novel results out of it. So let's go under its instrument menu and just create a new one. And here we have a blank slate to work from. And so I'm going to bring in some sound files. AIFs or waves for sound file formats. Those are uncompressed. They're ready for a computer to deal with. Not MP3 format or anything else that you might put on your phone. Those are compressed. They have this extra layer of encoding just to make the file size small and easy to move around. We don't want our computers to deal with files that are lower quality like that, because some data has been thrown out in order to make them small. We don't want our computers to work with the extra layer of unpacking the sounds. So AIF files or WAV files, please. On a Mac, I can click and highlight and then press the space bar to preview my sound. So that can be helpful, but ultimately I'm going to want to take my sound and drag it in. So it's here on the list. We can also see this blue bar associated with it, and it's now mapped to all the keys. And by default, you can see it's transposing it, changing the playback speed and along with it the pitch. If I don't want to associate it with every key, I can go up here to the range and drag and change it to a smaller range, so it just plays right there. And let me try to drag in a couple more sounds. And I don't need to be so precise up here. I can just drag them down so the edges fall in a place where I can reach them, and then I can just use my mouse. And that might be nice. I'm going to do one more for a good measure. Okay. So now I've got sounds associated, each one with a different key. They are still being transposed. So I may not want that. That was cute though. So if I want to disable the transposing, I'll uncheck this little pitch button. And now any key that's associated with it will play it at original speed. That allows you to do some neat effects like drum rolls. That would be really difficult if you only had one key associated with it. It also allows you to make any single key, whether it's high or low, play it at the right pitch. But also, let's see, what if I wanted something in between? I wanted it to transpose, but I wanted to use this range of my keyboard to do it. So if I want it to transpose, I have to use a pitch. But just because I want to use the left end of my keyboard, I'm not stuck with these being bass notes. What I can do is look at this control up here. This says that it's assuming that the sound I dragged in is a recording of some instrument playing the pitch middle C. It's calling C in the third octave here. And so, of course, if it's a C3 and I'm playing it at C2, then it should be playing it an octave lower, half speed, or C1 would be 2 octaves lower or a quarter of the original speed. If that's not what I want, then all I have to do is lie to my computer. It won't mind. And so I'll tell it, no, that's actually a C1. And so when I play the key C1, you should play it at normal volume, normal speed. There it is. Of course, anything above it will be playing at a higher speed. So I can adjust this however I need to. If I wanted to make it play lower than it should, I'll just tell it it's a higher note. Isn't that cool? Okay. If I happen to want to reverse it, I can reverse the sound too. And okay. So that's the basic mapping there. Let me put this back where I had it before. But I also want you to see that we can layer sounds. We can have one sound associated with multiple keys. So let me bring one more sound in. And so I could have this glass sound associated with all of these keys so that it plays. And we hear both sounds together. And I can make one transpose while another one doesn't, if I really wanted to. There. Okay. Or a common thing to do that's very rewarding is to associate the same two sounds with a given key and then look at the velocity. Velocity is attached to how loud a sound is. If you think about how fast your hand is moving when you press a piano key, the faster it's moving, the louder that sound is going to be. And so let's say if I'm playing this first sound I brought in, the bottle sound, and I'll associate that with, oh, I can't quite grab it. There I go. There. I'll associate that with the lower range of velocity, and the other sound I brought in, glass, let me associate that with louder presses of the key. This is something I can't simulate with the mouse, but if you play this with your MIDI instrument, play it quietly, and you'll hear the bottle sound. Play it loudly, and you'll hear the glass sound. And it's nice to have a little bit of overlap, so in the middle you'll hear a little bit of both, and they'll automatically get louder and softer. That's true for any of these. They'll get louder and softer depending on how loud or soft you play the pitch. Play the piano key, that is. One last thing that may be useful, this one-shot key right here. If you have a longer sound file that maybe could be used as a background for your piece, or maybe it's the backbone of your piece, it's got some rhythmic structure to it, or a big build up to a climax, and you just don't need, you need to do other things besides hold your pinky down and make sure you don't lift up your pinky, because that'll screw up the last 30 seconds of music. What you can do is associate your sound with a key that you want to use. Maybe I'll use something very down at the low range, so it's easy to find, and I'll turn off pitch so it'll play at regular pitch. And so if I play it and let go, I'll just hear the beginning part. Or I'll hear it.
Was done of the White House.
I'll hear it as long as I'm holding the key down. If I activate one-shot mode, then it will start playing and continue playing, and all I have to do is tap the key and let it go, and then I can get on to other things.
Thus, when the quest was done of the White Hart, the which followed Sir Gawain.
like that.
Thus, when the quest was done of the White Hound,
Okay.
the which followed Sir Gawain, then the king established there the knights and gathered them.
Okay, as that fades out, we want to see how to store what you've done. And we've actually created two things. We created this logic session, and then we created our instrument. And it's a good idea to save your instrument and make sure you know where you put it. It's a good idea to keep your sounds that you used with you, so you know where to find them. But Logic does offer a nice feature, so when I go to save the Logic session itself, you'll see something like this, and I'll want to give it a descriptive name. I'll make sure I want to put it in a place where I can find it, like on my desktop. And then it has this nice extra feature here where it's offering to copy these things into your project. So my sampler instrument and all the samples, it's offering to save with my project, and so it'll always be able to find them together. It's always a good idea to save them on your own first, and make sure you know where you can find them in case that doesn't work out. But this usually works nicely too, and so we can save, and there we've got it.